Kenya's biggest conversation enters the third hour. We're live on SpiceFM, on KTN Home and online. SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. CT Muga has the day's proverb.
I do. Harusi usioalikwa ukivunja kikombe utalipa.
Yeah. Again, harusi
usioalikwa ukivunja kikombe utalipa. The assumption here is that hukualikwa na ulienda.
A wedding to which you haven't been invited. If you break a cup, you shall pay. You will be surcharged. You're an invited guest.
The assumption is that if you are an invited guest, then you can break whatever you please.
Well, they'll excuse you here and there. They say, these are things that happen. It's probably because whatever reason will be given. Let's continue with the conversation. In the last hour, we were talking to a young man who wants to be the MP for the Great North. This time, let's talk to a man who wants to be the President of the Republic of Kenya. And this is the Governor of Makueni County, the Honorable His Excellency Kivutha Kibwana. He joins us via video link from Wote in Makueni. Good morning, Your Excellency.
Good morning, Kenya.
It's good to have you again on the show. We were hoping to have you in the studio, but we understand that you have a function today with the County Assembly.
That's correct. I have my State of County address today.
Your Excellency, first of all, congratulations for hosting a wonderful devolution conference. As you know, I attended. I was there. I saw it in person. And also I saw the beautiful Water Town. Lovely place there.
Thank you very much. Yes, because of devolution, many towns are growing in the entire country, and Wote is no exception. We are very proud of that.
We also understand that you got bereaved recently. Allow us to pass our condolences to you and your family.
Thank you very much. Yes, I lost my cousin and my aunt same week, and so it was a heavy week.
Now, on to the conversation. Your Excellency, 2 days ago, you tweeted on your Twitter handle, which is at Governor Kibwana, and this is what you said, that, I'm just getting it. It is said that the 2022 general election is a two-horse race, Raila Ruto, with an Oka mule and several donkeys on the track. As a presidential aspirant, I accept the tag of a donkey. Jesus Christ, the ultimate servant leader, rode on a donkey to face his epoch trial. Kenyans, I beseech you to campaign for me by word of mouth. I believe we can redeem Kenya from endemic corruption, tribalism, impunity, youth neglect, underdevelopment, poverty, etc. I lack billions for the campaign, but you're able to raise resources for the change that we deserve. This is what you tweeted, and I looked at it, and in fact, we all looked at it and thought, wait, you mean Governor Kibwana is still in the race?
Governor Kibwana has been on the race. I got unwell. Actually, I was out of town for about 3-4 months after I had an operation. And so some of the impetus that we had created got somewhat lost. And of course, the presidential bid is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And therefore, even my party, where now I'm party leader, Muungano Party, was able to give me the position of vying for presidential candidate, subject, of course, to the NDC, which will meet in January, so that it is able to deliberate on that. And if, of course, there is no other candidate, then they will be able to say that I have space within it. So, and you may remember very recently, the former Michael, the former in charge of KRA, saying that there are all these people, yes, but if the country wants a Kibaki, they can find him in Kibwana. Karuti Kanyinga and others who have been writing, William Mutunga and so on, they all say that is somebody who could be a president of the country and really cause major change. Just like we have in our small way try to do in Makueni. But of course, I do realize that one needs money, and it's not little money. And as a result, one has to make provision for that. And if, for example, like Obama did, people were able to contribute $5, $10, because in that country they have a maximum of what you can contribute to an election bid as a supporter. So if, as we go on, we are able to crowdfund from Kenyans, then we will be doing very well. And so I'm really persuaded that as a president of this country, I would really help my country people, and we would make a good mark on the continent.
Governor, even as we hear the different, every time we are asked about, development matters and who's been able to do what in the country, we never, we rarely miss to hear the name of Makueni County come in. I'm just going to give a few examples. When we talk about UHC and the 4 pilot counties of Kisumu, Isiolo, Nyeri, and Machakos that were used, Makueni went ahead and mirrored this and was able to then implement some of these things already. We have the health sector that's booming in the county. Under your leadership, so many things have happened. We've heard stories of how you yourself visit county hospitals because they're up to scratch and you're able to use them as an individual. The whole story of you being a disruptor, where you said, all right, everybody, let's disband this whole thing. Let's vote again. People still voted you back in. Your county is being used as an example around the country. Every time it comes up, do you think this is enough to extrapolate to the national level and have you then, as president of the entire country, based on what you've done at the county?
Leadership in the county consists of work, which is 1/47. Because we have 47 counties. And so a county, of course, is a small place compared to the entire country. But the principles of leadership that you use to run a county can be extrapolated to the national level. For example, if you really respect people, if you acknowledge their dignity, if you accept their voice, if you are ready to be criticized by them when they are not, you are not doing well, if you promote integrity within yourself as the leader, so that integrity is promoted from above, and you try to make sure that many of your people also follow that, it is really the same principles that are used. And of course, because I have in the past, there was a time I led the pro-democracy movement in Kenya in the 80s and 90s, particularly in the 90s, and was an integral part of helping to birth the Constitution. In actual fact, people who have read what I wrote as a lecturer will find that a lot of the ideas that came into the Constitution, I was one of the persons with Akena Willie and so on. But of course, I must recognize that another very powerful force also behind that constitution was Honorable Raila Odinga, the enjoyers, those civil society people. So I was able to be part of constructing what now we say is devolution, and knowing how the constitution can really be implemented, because that's one big deficit in terms of implementing the constitution and implementing rule of law. And there were times I was asked to be a compromised presidential candidate in 1997, but I said my duty was to work on the constitution. I didn't want to get into politics then. And of course, I was a minister. And there's one thing that many Kenyans don't know, that, and I don't like talking too much about myself and praising myself, and all the things we have done is to the glory of God. But there was a time I was a double minister for environment and natural resources, as well as lands, for 17 months. I would work during the day in one ministry and a bit of the night in the other ministry, and interchange that. And so including being president of the Climate Change Convention and other conventions worldwide and meeting many leaders. So I am clear in my mind. I have what it takes to be a president of this country and to help in terms of taking our country forward. But this matter is a matter left to God and the people.
Senator, Your Excellency, there's something about you that is uniquely outstanding. If we were to look at your track record, you're talking about in academia, you're talking about in policy influencing and making, talking about your involvement in bringing about lasting change and in birthing the new constitution. The record is second to none. And if one was simply to go by those standards, you'd be the perfect candidate for the presidency. However, there's one little element about politics and gunning for a seat such as the presidency. It is putting yourself out there so that people can actually see you, know you, and hear you. You mentioned Barack Obama. Barack Obama was unknown. I mean, his position, was he a first-term senator? Yes. And yet, it is because people got to hear of him, know of him, and the whole country got to know, hear of him. Now, people know there is a gentleman by the name of Professor Kivutha Kibwana, yes. But they do not know you as well as they know William Ruto. They don't know you as well as they know Raila Odinga. They don't know you as much as they know Uhuru Kenyatta, and they ought to. What have you and your team set in place so that you can have the same outreach that these individuals have?
I think in recent times, some of what we have done in Makueni has given us very critical profile, because in many places where I go, people, say, you are the president that we should have. And if that doesn't happen, you will be the president that we never had. So there is a lot of knowledge of the things that Makueni do. And in actual fact, I tell my colleagues that the name of Makueni is a very special name, and they must maintain that, even those who will come after me. But let me also say, when we were advocating for the Constitution, and I had been a lecturer when we started 88, when I was at 34, even President Moi then did not realize that there was a group that was in formation that was doing certain things. And by the time when he knew, because of the way in which we organized ourselves in terms of organizing ourselves, quote, underground and within the grassroots, by the time he realized that actually there was a force, it was a bit too late to stop it. And although there were episodes of, being abducted and all that kind of stuff. So, you see, when many of the people who go, they have a big crowd, and then when the other person comes, the same crowd is there, and sometimes they're expecting money and all that, and excitement. I work with the faith sector, I work with the youth sector, I work with the professional people, and there are ways in which I reach them, which is not necessarily the usual way of reaching a big crowd in a town. You stop the town, you make sure you block the main road and so on. Even when I go to the church and so on, because I'm a Christian, I have decided that I will not do politics there. I will not invite cameras and so on, unless I've gone to church and it's somebody else who has come. Because I also believe that I don't have to be afraid of any politician. I don't have to be afraid that, I go to Honorable Raila's meeting. If there is a church event of Ruto, I will also go to that. Because I'm a competitor as them, and I don't have to be afraid of them. And when I become a president, I'll be a president of all of them. And if they become president, I will also be under them and so on. So I think it is how people campaign. And by the way, when Obama started, because we went to the same school in the States, when he started, actually, instead of going to get a big corporate job after going through Harvard, he went to help communities to deal with the problems that they had, if it's housing problem, if it's a health problem, and all that. So it is only that we haven't seen there are other ways of campaigning so that you do the last mile within communities. And that is what in Makueni 2013, even when ODMK was against us, we were able to succeed because we campaign in a different way.
So are you saying, Your Excellency, that the work that you have done and the work that you are currently doing within the circles who have intimate knowledge of this, that is enough to propel you to this national executive position? Do you think it's enough? What about those people who are not in those circles? What about those people who need a little bit more gregarious persuasion? What about them?
There are about 1,450 wards in the country. And our strategy is to make sure that our candidature and what it stands for will reach those 1,450 spaces at that very low level. And that's what we did for the Constitution in terms of civic education. We were able to work with groups which were in all these places. And we got that message through. Of course, during that time, we also helped a lot by the media, because a time was reached when the media was not happy with the way in which the country was running. We were helped by the religious sector because we would do the education in their venues and all that. So I think because we are doing things in a different way, for example, the deputy president will go to 20 places in like let's say 10 places in one day. In terms of how I operate and the people that I talk to and people of in many places, I'm able to actually literally, like during a day, do like 3 things. But it's only that sometimes people do them so that there's a lot of visibility, and some other times when you're really planting your ideas, you may decide to have a different strategy. But I also admit that some of these names, like Raila, Ruto, the ones I called the hostels, they have positions of, if you are a deputy president, if you are a former prime minister, somebody who has really committed their life to causing change and so on. Those have significant visibility, particularly within the media space, and they also, have resources to go to very many places and so on. So that is something that I recognize, but it doesn't mean that one can't devise a way of reaching Kenyans, which is not necessarily the same as, and if you look at Europe, you will be able to see parties which are called fringe parties. And those fringe parties, like green parties, they have a way of organizing so that at the end, even when they don't win in a parliamentary system, they become very influential, and sometimes you have to use them to tilt the power balance. And I'm not saying that I want to win, but I think what we are, when you talked about the if you're invited and then you can break the glass, I was just thinking loudly that in my community it's a half calabash and not a glass. And so I think what we really have to offer is important. In terms of our country, we try to help Kibaki when I was his advisor, and even things like the youth ministry, some of the funds and so on. We used to work in his office, and we would generate ideas, and we brought out some of those ideas. So I am sure in my own mind that I am not spent. There is that which I can help Kenya, and I know it's a question of God leading me so that I'm able to do that. And because I don't really seek power for power's sake, I am sure God will advocate for me, will show me what I must do.
Prof, we can't really take away from you the fact that you are experienced. You've been in the trenches for many years, like you said, from the lecture halls to the civil society corridors to politics. You've been elected into parliament. You've been elected as governor twice, despite all the odds and the challenges. So therefore, when you say that you've got a strategy on how you want to approach the presidential race, we really have to sit back and say, okay, so he knows what he's talking about. But we've got to ask you those questions that, hey, okay, so he says he wants to be president. We have to compare with what we have seen previously as the presidential campaigns. Governor, we were talking about what you've been doing and what your idea for campaigning has been. And we even looked at your own track record, what you've done from the civil society, from positions of leadership as an assistant minister, from advisor to the president, to a governor of a county for 2 terms. And you even tweeted and said, I'd like Kenyans to mobilize in their own small way and campaign for me through word of mouth. One of the people that you've mentioned that has worked with you, throughout this journey of seeking reforms in the country is the former Chief Justice, Dr. Willie Mutunga. He tweeted in response to your tweet, and he said, in the name of Jesus, you need, therefore, to clearly, robustly, continually, and consistently critique brutally the political baronical factions and their politics of criminal status quo. Alternative and authentic political voices need to be heard and believed. It seems, Dr. Mutunga says, you need to be louder than you have been.
Yes, Dr. Mutunga, the former Chief Justice, is my mentor from university days because he taught me at the university, and we had really almost a father-son relationship, although the gap between both of us is not very large. And of course, Mutunga is a Muslim, but he subscribes to all faiths. And so when he says in the name of Jesus, that's a very important.
It's in response to what you had said. Jesus walked in on a donkey and he went to face his fight. So he told you.
So the reference here is not just Jesus in the spiritual form, but the donkey rider.
Yes.
The donkey rider.
Yes.
I have a way of engaging people and issues. I don't necessarily combat what I think is not the correct position. Rather the people. For example, I'm not going to rise up and say, I think the president has done this, I think Raila has done this, I think Ruto has done this. I state by a life example my position by what I do. And then I advocate the things that I think need to be done. And I don't think that I have to necessarily put people down or be very vitriolic in terms of, criticizing them because they have also supporters. And I'm trying to convince their supporters so that their supporters will come to my side. So there is a small difference there in terms of how my approach and what my teacher, my mentor is advocating. So I'm not going to go out there and say, these are the barons and they, did what. But I'm going to say, what do I stand for? What do I think can be done so that our country changes? Because when God and the people of Kenya elect me to be president, then all those people will be under me, and I don't want to appear to really antagonize them. When I can, do my campaigns and I can, convince people in a way so that I don't appear to threaten people, to badmouth people, to do stuff. But it's true in politics sometimes. I can see colleagues getting at each other's jugulars, and I think it's even going to get worse as we go towards August, and that is a danger because. When you mobilize your people against the others, and you are telling them that those people are the they are bad people and they are all that kind of stuff. Then we divide our country, and in 2022 we really don't want to go back to 2007-8. So it is, even when we were advocating for the constitution, I think we anybody who followed how I went about my business will realize that I was not, like really going for the jugular of Moi and so on. I was talking about the bad things that are happening. If it is a centralization of power, I would talk about the issue and not necessarily, focus too much on the people. But I continue my conversation with my mentor, and there are many things that is able to contribute to my life. But there is also another way in which I try to tell him that I want to do business as well. And of course, I've been criticized by some of those reformers, saying that you even at some point appeared to support BBI, which was not true. And sometimes you soften, you appear to be dining with these people. Like 2002, when I got into politics, some of the reform people didn't want that to happen. They wanted us to continue in civil society. So there are differences, but they are healthy differences, and we continue to make conversation.
Your Excellency, I like what you're saying. Your approach is an excellent approach. It's accommodating, and as you say correctly, it's not vitriolic. However, your party, how widespread is the membership? How many officers do you have around the county? Or are you going to tell me that isn't part of your strategy to have officers around the country? Because when I look at, I'm going back again to the example of Obama. Obama had a party structure behind him. So even though he was not known perhaps because he was a one-term senator, but his party machinery was there to support him. So I'm asking, how robust, how widespread, and how strong is your party structure?
That's a very legitimate question. And by the way, many of our parties are dead parties, with the exception of probably, because even now Jubilee, which is the ruling party, is having major problems. You'll remember NAC died after 5 years. Many of these parties are seasonal.
It's alive, Governor. Your neighbor is the party leader of NAC, Governor Ngilu.
and we must say really pole to her because of the loss of those very many people in the river.
Indeed.
We must say sorry for her. She's really when you talk about ladies, you talk about Martha and Ngilu, they are also my heroes. And she continued to quote on what was left of NAC.
Okay.
So I'm saying I'm saying that one thing that we must do as a country, and I'm going to answer about Muungano, but one thing that we must do as a country is to actually make sure that there are real political parties. That's one big miss in our journey towards democracy, because many of them belong to people. For you to be nominated, you must know those people, or sometimes even you must pay more than the nomination fees. So we are working on making Muungano a real party so that, for example, we have true membership. We have an elected leadership. When we have nomination rules, they are adhered to. It is a party of vision, and we can go towards what ANC was, what CCM was. It's a long journey. Now we have officers according to the law, because you must have at least officers in 24, minimum 24 counties. So there is that, and even it's true that many of the parties which were registered, they have to farm up again their offices and so on. But it's not just having a physical office. It is the first step of, and this is what we are continuing to do, making sure that we have we have membership, and as I said, we are going to have an ADC in January, and because actually I'm a student of electoral law, where that's what I worked on for my dissertation, and I wrote extensively on political parties. As we Muungano being work in progress, but as we make it stronger, and of course, at the end, one will not. You cannot rule out
Governor,
the fact of entering into coalitions with others.
Let me come in here on that particular issue of the political party. You're
Yes.
saying that you want now to strengthen Muungano party. You were in Muungano. You left
Yes.
Muungano, went to Wiper. You left Wiper,
Yes.
came back to Muungano. Now, how do we
Yes.
trust that even if we gave you the presidency, you're not going to do what we have seen happen to Jubilee? That this Muungano that you're talking about being a bigger party, you'll still abandon it and form something new.
We went into coalition with the Wiper Party, so we had not abandoned Muungano. But unfortunately, many of the things that we had put in our MOU were not respected, and that is what made us now say we still will go back home to Muungano. And actually, when we left Muungano, for me to go into Wiper, we had a public participation process within Makueni. And, because I was a governor there, and then I asked the people, do you think we should, make a union with Wiper? And initially they refused. They said, no, we don't trust what will happen there. You might be mistreated. And we had to call the leader of Wiper to Makueni for the people to talk to him and give him conditions. But unfortunately, those conditions were not adhered to. And again, now the people, have said, come back to us. We want now to tell you, you now need to do something else. So we try to be guided by the people, so Muungano is home. Muungano, we are going to, build it. We want to get into coalitions with the so-called small parties initially. And because you can't, even as a president, you must have parliament. And therefore, we are also ready to get into a coalition with like-minded people.
Governor, you have used, fairly extensively Christian analogy. You've talked of the Christian God, the Christian Jesus, but there's something about Jesus that I've always found appealing. He had disciples. And it is these disciples who went out to spread the message. His message was just in his home area, in his Gishagi. And then it moved out and it went to all the other places. I'm going back to that question of now, I'm using your analogy and the example you've set, your disciples. The partnerships that Jesus had were people who are, again, of like-minded. And he went from Samaria to the other places that they went to. Now, you, sir, as the leader of Muungano Party, who are your disciples before you start reaching out for, and where are they before you start reaching out for coalitions with other like-minded individuals?
As I tried to explain earlier, I work with many people, and whether it's in the youth fraternity, it's in the professionals, it is in generally the middle class, it's many people also at the grassroots, organizations at the grassroots. We have this elaborate network of people that we work with, and some of it is from the civil society days, and also from my work as a governor working with others. And these are the 12 disciples. They were just 12. Now we have many people that we are working with, and of course I'm not comparing myself to Jesus or other prophets. And some of why I talk a lot about Jesus and so on is, apart from being a believer, I actually studied theology, and it was comparative theology. Christian, Islam, comparative theology. So it's only that some of what we are doing, there are times you arrange your your politics or your activism in such a way that a lot is happening underground until a time is reached and it is unveiled. And then people say, where was this all this time?
Governor, it could be, excuse me, it could be assumed that we know, but why do you want to be president of Kenya?
Yes, it could be assumed that and it's not good for one to leave it at the level of where people just assume. In Makueni, we have constructed the people's government, where from the level of the village, and we have 43 villages, something we call a cluster, 377 of them, up to the ward, sub-ward, and up to the county. We have actually people who are elected. They elected themselves, and they run a lot of the things in Makueni. Like they do their budget, like they supervise their projects, like they even during bursary they give out. I think we have done our politics here without really involving the people so that there is ownership of the government. I think we can do this for the whole of Kenya. In terms of the constitution and rule of law, if you, as a leader, you made sure that the constitution is followed, you made sure that, nobody is above, the law, and the things that, whether it's socioeconomic rights within the constitution, whether it is the rights of people, it's dignity, it's, if you did all that, and it's not necessarily a very difficult thing to do, Kenya would be like those other countries which respect their constitutions and laws. If you are able to tame corruption, and this is something that I'm very, very passionate about, if there is something that holds us back, it is a question that, as our president said, each day 2 billion shillings are lost. In a year, that would be over 700 billion shillings. And that is 2 years of the money that is given to counties currently. And for example, one thing that we have done in Makueni is in terms of the procurement. Our procurement, we do open contracting, so that whatever information about procurement, who is asking to get jobs, how much are they charging, and all that, it's open to the public, and the public can say, this thing happened, it was not correct, and so on. And we are the only county, and even it's a discussion at the national level, but it has not happened, where there is that kind of transparency and openness. So that corruption thing, I am sure in my administration, it's something that we will deal with. And if from the very top, you show it clearly that it's not to be tolerated. Like when Kibaki came in, citizens were arresting police people, and so because they were convinced that we had to go away from corruption. Then devolution. In actual fact, if devolution is properly implemented, so that the functions that go to counties are given to counties, they aren't parastatals or ministries doing what counties should do. If there's a bit of increment of the money that goes to devolution, we have talked about 35%. It can be even 40, 45, like in other countries, Japan, Nigeria, and so on. So that really devolution and we control so that even in the counties there isn't, wrongdoing and stuff like that. Again, I think I can deal with the negative ethnicity so that the 46 communities feel they are included, so that when you are appointing your cabinet secretaries, the PSs, the heads of whatever, there isn't a group which is excluded. And you can even ask them, give us some of your best people so that they can be considered, so that we don't simply say whoever was campaigning is the one who will get positions and so on. Another elephant in the room is working with young people. From when I was a teacher at the university for 25 years, I worked with young people in civil society, now mentoring them in county government and so on. And we need to really focus there, and we are trying to do certain things in Makueni. Then we need to promote clean business, to promote private sector, look at the issue of taxation, look at all those issues, and really remove entrepreneurs and cartels, running our agriculture, running our, transport sector, running everything. Then, of course, the public debt. The public debt, that is an albatross around us as a country. And that is something that, you need people who can even negotiate with the lenders, and we cancel some of the loans, we exchange some of them for green activity, and climate change work, and we sequence our, because you cannot say you won't pay, because that has dire consequences. And then to position our country in Eastern Africa, in Africa, the globe, because it's a country of immense potential, and where we have reached during the conclusion of President Uhuru Kenyatta, where we have reached, if the things that I have really talked about are emphasized, then we can be in a pole position in terms of the continent, and we will soon go to the real middle economy.
Governor Kivutha Kibwana, thank you very much for joining us. Let's have you again in the studio as you roll out your campaign, as you continue campaigning to seek the presidency, as you talk to more people. We appreciate you joining us this morning.
And I'm really very happy to this morning have a bit of spice in my morning and in my day.
Asante sana. Have a lovely day, Governor.
Asante.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.